The doors of the Galactic Council chamber stood 40 meters tall. They were made from the compressed core of a dead star, and they had not opened for an uninvited species in over 3,000 years. Today, they opened for humanity. Ambassador David Reyes walked through those ancient doors with his head held high. Behind him followed 12 other humans, their footsteps echoing against floors that had witnessed the rise and fall of empires. The chamber stretched before them like a cathedral built by gods. Floating platforms held representatives from over 800 species, beings of light and shadow, of crystal and flesh, of forms that human minds could barely process. Every single one of them was staring at the humans. The silence was absolute. Supreme Chancellor Mordax, a towering figure whose body seemed to be made of living metal, rose from the central platform. His voice boomed across the chamber like thunder rolling through mountains. You were not summoned. You were not invited. How did you find this place? Ambassador Reyes stopped in the center of the chamber. He looked up at the countless alien faces watching him. Some showed curiosity. Most showed fear. A few showed something that looked remarkably like hatred. He smiled. We followed the signals, he said simply. You have been watching Earth for 200 years. Did you really think we would not notice? Murmurs rippled through the assembled species. Chancellor Mordax raised a metallic appendage for silence. The observation protocols are classified at the highest level. No primitive species has ever detected them. Then perhaps, Reyes said, his smile never wavering, we are not as primitive as you believed. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. Every weapon in the chamber immediately trained on him. Thousands of guards from dozens of species prepared to fire. Reyes did not flinch. Relax, he said. This is just a data chip. It contains recordings of every observation satellite you have placed in our solar system. Every probe. Every listening device. We have known about all of them since 1987. He tossed the chip onto the floor. It clattered against the ancient stone. We also know about Protocol Omega, the one that classifies humanity as the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The one that forbids any contact with Earth. The one that has kept you hiding from us like children afraid of thee. Dark. The chamber erupted. Chancellor Mordax slammed his appendage against his podium so hard that cracks appeared in the metal. Silence. The noise died instantly. You know nothing, Mordax growled. Protocol Omega exists because your species is unstable, violent, unpredictable. You have fought wars against yourselves for your entire history. You created weapons capable of destroying your own planet. You are a threat to every civilization in this galaxy. Ambassador Reyes nodded slowly. You are absolutely right. This response seemed to catch Mordax off guard. You admit this? Of course. Humanity is violent. We are unpredictable. We have done terrible things to ourselves and to our world. But here is what you do not understand, Chancellor. Reyes took a step forward. His voice dropped to something cold and quiet. Everything you fear about us, we did to ourselves. Imagine what we could do to someone who actually threatened us. The silence that followed was the most profound the Council had ever experienced. From the upper platforms, a being of pure energy spoke. This was Elder Luminex of the Celestin Collective, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. Why have you come here, human? What do you want? Reyes looked up at the glowing entity. We came because of the Vorith Dominion. The reaction was immediate and violent. Species that had been sitting calmly suddenly recoiled. Guards stepped backward. Chancellor Mordax's metallic form actually flickered with what might have been fear. How do you know that name? Mordax demanded. Because 3 of their scout ships entered our solar system 6 months ago. They scanned our planet. They transmitted detailed information about Earth's population, resources, and defenses back to their home fleet. Reyes paused. We intercepted those transmissions. We decoded them. And we learned something very interesting. The Vorath Dominion is coming to conquer Earth. They believe we are weak. They believe we are alone. They believe no one in the galaxy will help us. He looked around the chamber at the hundreds of species watching him. Are they right? More silence. Finally, a reptilian ambassador from the lower platform stood. The Vorath Dominion has conquered 37 worlds in the past century. Their fleet numbers in the millions. Even the combined forces of the Galactic Council could not stop them. I know, Reyes said. We have studied their history. We know exactly how powerful they are. We also know that this council has been paying them tribute for the past 50 years to avoid war. You have sacrificed entire species to keep them satisfied. Guilty looks passed between the assembled representatives. We are not here to judge you, Reyes continued. We are here to offer you something you have never had before. And what is that? Chancellor Mordax asked, his voice heavy with suspicion. Ambassador Reyes turned to face the Supreme Chancellor directly. A chance to win. Impossible. The Vorath fleet is too large. Their weapons are too advanced. Their soldiers are too numerous. Their fleet is large, Reyes agreed, but it has never faced humanity. Their weapons are advanced, but we have been developing our own in secret for 2 centuries. Their soldiers are numerous, but they have never fought an enemy who refuses to surrender. He pulled out another device. This one projected a holographic image into the center of the chamber. It showed Earth, but not the Earth the Council had been observing. This Earth was surrounded by orbital platforms, defense stations, shipyards, a fleet of vessels that should not have existed according to every analysis the Council had ever conducted. You thought we were still fighting with primitive rockets, Reyes said. You thought we were a century away from interstellar travel. You thought Protocol Omega was keeping us contained. The hologram expanded, showing the true scale of humanity's secret preparations. You were wrong. Chancellor Mordax stared at the hologram. His metallic form was absolutely still. How? He whispered. How did you hide this from us? Because you were not the only ones watching, Chancellor. We knew about your satellites. We knew about your probes. So we built everything underground, in the oceans, on the dark side of our moon, in places your sensors could not reach. Reyes smiled again, but this time there was no warmth in it. Humanity has been preparing for war since the moment we realized we were not alone. Not war against you. War against whatever might threaten our home. And now that threat has a name. He looked up at the assembled council. The Vorath Dominion is coming for Earth. They expect to find a primitive species cowering in fear. Instead, they will find us. And when they do, they will learn the same lesson that every enemy of humanity has learned throughout our history. What lesson? Elder Luminex asked. Ambassador David Reyes stood tall in the center of the greatest gathering of alien species the galaxy had ever known. His voice carried to every corner of the vast chamber. Never start a war you are not prepared to lose. The council chamber remained frozen in stunned silence. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Vorath invasion fleet continued its relentless advance toward Earth, completely unaware that the prey they sought was about to become the predator. The War Council convened in the deepest chamber of the sea, Galactic Council headquarters, a room that had not been used in over 1,000 years. Ancient lights flickered to life as representatives from 47 species took their positions around a massive holographic display table. Ambassador Reyes stood at the head of the table. Beside him was General Elena Vasquez, commander of Earth's newly revealed defense forces. Her face was carved from stone, her eyes scanning every alien in the room with the calm assessment of a predator studying potential threats. Chancellor, Mordax activated the central display. A map of the galaxy appeared, with a red wave moving steadily toward a small blue dot on the outer rim. The Vorath Dominion fleet departed their staging area 14 standard days ago, Mordax explained. Current estimates suggest 8 million vessels of various classes. They will reach Earth in approximately 40 rotations. General Vasquez studied the display without expression. How many did you say? 8 million. I see. The reptilian ambassador from the previous session, whose name was Counselor Threx, leaned forward. General, I mean no disrespect, but your hidden fleet appears to number approximately 50,000 vessels. Even with advanced technology, those numbers are simply impossible to overcome. Vasquez did not look at him. Her eyes remained fixed on the advancing red wave. Counselor, humanity has spent its entire history fighting against impossible odds. We have a saying on Earth. It is not the size of the dog in the fight. It is the size of the fight in the dog. I do not understand this reference to canines. You will. Ambassador Reyes stepped forward. Ladies, gentlemen, and various other classifications of sentient life, we did not come here expecting the Galactic Council to fight our war for us. We came here to warn you. Warn us? Elder Luminex flickered with confusion. Warn us of what? The Vorath are not coming just for Earth. Our intelligence suggests that once they have secured our solar system, they intend to use it as a staging ground for a full assault on Council space. Your tribute payments have not satisfied them. They have been building toward this moment, foe. Our decades. Silence gripped the chamber. That cannot be true. A crystalline being called Ambassador Velix protested. We have treaties, agreements. They gave us their word. General Vasquez laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Their word. Tell me, Ambassador, when was the last time the Vorath honored a treaty with a species weaker than themselves? Velix had no answer. Here is what is going to happen, Vasquez continued. In 40 rotations, the Vorath fleet will arrive at Earth. They expect to find a primitive world with no defenses. Instead, they will find the United Earth Defense Force waiting for them. We will engage their fleet, and we will hold them at our solar system for as long as possible. Hold them? Counselor Threx interrupted. With 50,000 ships against 8 million? You will be destroyed in hours. Perhaps. But every hour we hold them is an hour you can use to prepare your own defenses. Every Vorath ship we destroy is one less ship that will eventually reach your worlds. We are offering you time, Counselor. What you do with it is your choice. The chamber fell into heated discussion. Species argued with each other. Old rivalries surfaced. Fear made voices sharp and words cruel. Through it all, Ambassador Reyes watched, waited, studied. Finally, he raised his hand. The gesture was so simple, so human, that it somehow cut through all the noise. I understand your fear, he said quietly. I understand your doubts. You have watched humanity from a distance for 2 centuries. You have seen our wars, our cruelty, our capacity for destruction. You created Protocol Omega because you believed we were too dangerous to contact. He paused. You were right. We are dangerous. But here is what you missed while you were watching us tear ourselves apart. You missed what happens when humanity finds something worth protecting. He activated his own holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the table. Human soldier carrying a wounded child through a burning. City rescue workers digging through rubble with their bare hands. Doctors working through the night to save. Strangers they would never meet again. Ships crossing oceans to bring food to starving. Nations, ordinary people standing in front of tanks to protect. Others, this is also humanity, Reyes said. "This is what we do when innocent lives are at stake. This is what we do when someone needs help. You saw our darkness because that is what you were looking for. You missed our light." General Vasquez stepped forward. "The Vorath are not coming just to conquer. Our intelligence indicates they intend to harvest Earth's population. 8 billion humans, processed for biological resources. Men, women, children, all of them reduced to raw materials." The horror of this statement rippled through the assembled species. "We are not fighting for territory or resources or pride. We are fighting because the alternative is extinction. And when humans fight for survival, we do not surrender. We do not retreat. We do not stop until the threat is eliminated, or we are all dead." "You would sacrifice your entire species?" Elder Luminex asked. Vasquez met the ancient being's gaze without flinching. "We would sacrifice everything to protect the people we love. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us dangerous. And that is why the Vorath are going to lose." Chancellor Mordax had been silent for a long time. Now he spoke, his metallic voice heavy with something that might have been shame. "For 50 years, we have paid tribute to the Dominion. We have given them resources. We have given them technology. We have given them ... populations." The word hung in the air like a curse. Species who could not pay were handed over to the Vorath. Billions of sentient beings sacrificed to buy peace for the rest of us. We told ourselves it was necessary. We told ourselves there was no other choice. He looked at the human delegation. And now, a species we classified as too dangerous to contact has traveled across the galaxy to warn us. To fight for us. To die for us, if necessary. While we have been hiding behind our treaties and our tributes, you have been preparing to stand alone against the darkness. Mordax rose to his full height. "I am 3,000 years old. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have witnessed horrors that would shatter lesser minds. But I have never felt shame like this. The Galactic Council has failed in its most basic duty. We were supposed to protect life. Instead, we have been feeding it to monsters." He turned to face the full assembly. "No more. If humanity is willing to stand against the Vorath, then the Council will stand with them. Not as observers. Not as tribute payers. As allies," the chamber erupted. Some species cheered. Others protested. Arguments broke out in a dozen languages, but something had changed. A spark had been lit, and as Ambassador Reyes watched the chaos unfold, he allowed himself a small moment of hope. The Vorath Dominion was still coming. 8 million ships were still advancing toward Earth. The odds were still impossible, but humanity was no longer alone. And somewhere in the back of her tactical mind, General Vasquez was already calculating how to use this new alliance to turn impossible odds into a fighting chance. The war had not even begun, and already the galaxy was starting to understand why Protocol Omega had been created. Humanity was not just dangerous because of what they could destroy. They were dangerous because of what they could inspire. The first Vorath. Scouts arrived 12 days ahead of schedule. Commander Nathan. Obi stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s Relentless, watching the sensor displays light up with hostile contacts. 3 Vorath reconnaissance vessels had just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. They were each 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could crack continents. "They are scanning us, Commander," his tactical officer reported. "Full spectrum analysis. They are cataloging everything." "Let them look," Obi said calmly. "I want them to see exactly what is waiting for their fleet." The Relentless was humanity's first true battleship. 2 kilometers of armor, weapons, and fury designed for one purpose only. Behind her floated the rest of the Sol Defense Fleet, 50,000 vessels arranged in precise formation around Earth. The Vorath scouts completed their scans. Then, unexpectedly, one of them began broadcasting on an open channel. Attention, primitive creatures of the third planet. This is Scout Commander Vexel of the Vorath Dominion. You have been selected for harvesting. Resistance is unnecessary and will only increase the efficiency requirements of your processing. Surrender your world, and your leaders will be granted quick deaths. Commander Obi looked at his communications officer. Open a channel. Channel open, sir. Obi leaned forward slightly. Scout Commander Vexel, this is Commander Nathan Obi of the United Earth Defense Force. I appreciate your offer, but I am afraid we must decline. You see, we have plans for this planet. It is where we keep all our stuff. Silence from the Vorath vessel. Furthermore, Obi continued, I should warn you that any attempt to advance past the outer planets will be considered an act of war. And I should also mention that we have been preparing for this war since before your grandparents were born. You threaten the Dominion? Vexel's voice carried disbelief. You are insects. Your entire species numbers less than our processing facilities can handle in a single rotation. Perhaps. But here is something you should know about insects, Commander. Sometimes the smallest creatures carry the deadliest stings. He nodded to his tactical officer. Fire. The Relentless opened up with everything she had. Plasma lances, kinetic accelerators, and experimental energy weapons that human scientists had been developing in secret for a century. The other ships in the fleet followed suit. The 3 Vorath scout vessels never had a chance to return fire. They were reduced to expanding clouds of debris in less than 4 seconds, on Earth. In the Unified Command Center, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Vasquez watched the engagement data scroll across her screens. Ambassador Reyes stood beside her. They will report this to the main fleet, Vasquez said. That was the idea. We want them angry. Angry enemies make mistakes. And if they do not make mistakes? Vasquez turned to face him. Then we make them regret every moment of this invasion until our last ship is destroyed and our last soldier falls. Either way, they will pay for what they came here to do. The next 28 days were a blur of preparation. At the Galactic Council headquarters, something unprecedented was happening. Species that had been rivals for millennia were working together. Kelmiri engineers shared shield technology with Valanthi shipwrights. Crystalline beings called the Prison Collective offered computational support to coordinate the combined fleet. Even the ancient Celestin, beings of pure energy who had not participated in physical conflicts for 10,000 years, volunteered to serve as communication relays. Ambassador Reyes moved between delegations, smoothing conflicts and building bridges. He had discovered something remarkable about galactic politics. Most species had never considered working together because no one had ever asked them to. The Council had always been about managing competition, not cooperation. Humanity's arrival had changed everything. You are different than we expected. Elder Luminex told him one evening as they watched the Allied fleet taking shape in the display screens. How so? We expected conquerors, warriors without conscience, beings who double. Owls seek to dominate or destroy. Instead, you are ... builders, connectors. You see potential where others see obstacles. Reyes smiled. We learned something a long time ago on Earth. No one survives alone. Every great achievement in human history came from people working together. We fight, yes. Sometimes we fight terribly. But in the end, we always find our way back to each other. And if you cannot find your way back from this fight, the ambassador's smile faded. Then we will make sure the Vorath pays such a terrible price that no one will ever threaten this galaxy again. The Vorath main fleet arrived on the 40th day. Exactly as predicted, 8 million vessels dropped out of hyperspace in a wave that seemed to swallow the stars themselves. They stretched across the solar system like a wall of death, blocking out the light from distant suns. Supreme Warlord Kroth commanded the invasion from his flagship, the Devastator. He was ancient by Vorath standards, having personally overseen the conquest of 30 worlds. He had never lost a battle. He had never shown mercy. He had never faced humanity. Report, he demanded. The primitive species has assembled a defense fleet near their planet, Supreme Warlord. Approximately 50,000 vessels. They have also gathered allies from the Galactic Council. Another 30,000 vessels of various classes. Kraft's mandibles clicked with amusement. 80,000 against 8 million. They are either brave or insane. Orders, Supreme Warlord? Standard conquest protocol. Advance in waves. Overwhelm their defenses. Capture their leaders alive. I want to eat their hearts while they watch. The Vorath fleet began its advance. On the bridge of the Relentless, Commander Obi watched the enemy approach. Beside him stood Admiral Patricia Holloway, the commander of all human forces. 8 million ships, she said quietly. Even with the Council allies, we are outnumbered 100 to 1. Then we better make every shot count. Admiral Holloway opened a channel to the entire fleet. All vessels, this is Admiral Holloway. The enemy is here. They come to harvest our world, to enslave our people, to end our existence. They believe we are weak. They believe we are afraid. They believe we will break. She paused. Let us show them what 8 billion humans fighting for their lives looks like. Let us show them what the galaxy can do when it stands together. And let us show them that Earth does not surrender. Not today. Not ever. All ships, weapons free. Make them bleed for every kilometer. The first wave of Vorath vessels entered weapons range, and humanity opened fire. The battle for Earth had begun. In the command center beneath the mountains. General Vasquez watched the first enemy ships explode. She watched human vessels die alongside them. She watched the casualty counts begin to climb, and she knew, with terrible certainty, that this was only the beginning. The Vorath had 8 million ships. Humanity had 80,000. But humanity had something the Vorath had never encountered before. The will to fight. Until the very end, the battle had raged for 72 hours without pause. Admiral Holloway stood on the bridge of her command vessel, the U.S. Defiance, watching the holographic display with eyes that had not closed in 3 days. Around her, officers moved with the mechanical precision of people running on adrenaline and duty alone. The numbers told a brutal story. Humanity and its allies had lost 18,000 ships. The Vorath had lost over 200,000. By any normal calculation, it was a stunning victory ratio, but the Vorath still had nearly 8 million vessels remaining, and humanity was running out of ships. Admiral, her tactical officer called out, the Vorath are reforming for another assault. This wave appears larger than the previous ones. How much larger? Approximately 500,000 vessels, Admiral. They are targeting Sector 7. That is where the Kelmiri defensive line is weakest. Holloway studied the display. The Kelmiri had fought bravely, far beyond what anyone had expected from a species known more for trade than warfare. But their shields were failing. Their weapons were overheating. They could not survive another major assault. Get me Commander Obi. The Relentless appeared on screen. Commander Obi's face was streaked with grime and blood. Part of his uniform was burned away. But his eyes were still sharp, still determined. Admiral. Nathan, I need you to reinforce Sector 7. Take the 4th Fleet and hold that line. Admiral, the 4th Fleet has taken 60% casualties. We have maybe 200 combat-capable vessels left. I know. Can you hold? Obi was silent for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. We can hold. For a while. That is all I am asking. Buy me time. Time for what? Admiral Holloway looked at something off-screen. Something she had been holding in reserve since the battle began. Time to wake up the Titans. The Vorath Devastator hung at the center of the enemy fleet like a bloated spider in its web. Supreme Warlord Krath watched the battle unfold with growing frustration. The humans were not dying properly. Every species that Vorath had ever conquered had eventually broken. Their fleets would scatter. Their soldiers would flee. Their leaders would beg for mercy. It was the natural order of things. The strong consumed the weak, but these humans refused to follow the natural order. For 3 days, they had fought against impossible odds. They had sacrificed ships to protect allies. They had launched suicide attacks against Vorath command vessels. They had done things that made no tactical sense, but somehow kept working, and they would not stop smiling. Krath had captured communications from human vessels. Even in their dying moments, as their ships burned around them, the humans were laughing, joking, telling each other it would be okay. It was deeply unsettling. Supreme Warlord, his sensor officer interrupted. We are detecting unusual energy signatures from the human defensive perimeter. Define unusual. Massive power buildup. 4 distinct sources. Each one is generating more energy than our entire fleet combined. Krath felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear. Show me. The display shifted. 4 vessels were emerging from behind the human defense line. They were enormous. Each one was at least 50 kilometers long, dwarfing even the largest Vorath warships. Their hulls were covered in weapons that Krath could not identify. And at the heart of each ship, something pulsed with blinding light. What are those? Before anyone could answer, one of the massive vessels fired. A beam of pure energy crossed the space between fleets in an instant. It struck a Vorath battle group in the center of their formation. 40,000 ships simply vanished, not destroyed, not scattered, vanished, as if they had never existed at all. Vorath fleet recoiled in shock. Admiral Holloway's voice cut across all communication channels, reaching every ship in both fleets. Attention Vorath Dominion. Those were our Titan-class dreadnoughts. We have 4 of them. Each one is capable of erasing 100,000 of your ships with a single shot. And they are fully charged and ready to fire again. She paused to let that sink in. You came here expecting easy prey. You found something else entirely. Now I'm going to give you a choice that we do not normally offer. Withdraw. Return to your space. Never threaten Earth or the Galactic Council again. Or stay. And we will show you what humanity does to those who try to hurt the people we love. Supreme Warlord Krath stared at the display in disbelief. His greatest fleet. His most powerful warships. And these humans had weapons that could swat them aside like insects. Supreme Warlord, his second-in-command whispered, perhaps we should consider silence. Krath roared. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. The Vorath Dominion has never lost a war, and we will not start now. He turned to his tactical officers. All ships, concentrate fire on those dreadnoughts. We will overwhelm them with numbers. We will. The second Titan fired another 50,000. Vorath ships ceased to exist. Then the third. Then the fourth in less than a minute. The Vorath fleet had lost 200,000 vessels. The Titans were already recharging for another volley. Krath felt his grip on the situation slipping away. His officers were staring at their screens in horror. His crew was backing toward the escape pods. This was not supposed to happen. The Vorath were the conquerors. They were the ones who inspired fear. They were the ones who... His communications officer spoke with a trembling voice. Supreme Warlord, We are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. Put it through. Chancellor Mordax appeared on screen. The ancient being looked different than Krath remembered. Stronger somehow. More resolute. Supreme Warlord Krath. For 50 years, the Galactic Council has paid tribute to the Vorath Dominion. We have given you resources, technology, and even populations. We did this because we believed you were too powerful to fight. Mordax leaned forward. We were wrong. The humans have shown us that power is not just about numbers or weapons. It is about will. It is about courage. It is about standing together against the darkness. Behind Mordax, representatives from hundreds of species appeared on screen. All of them were watching. All of them were united. The Galactic Council formally revokes all treaties with the Vorath Dominion. We will no longer pay tribute. We will no longer sacrifice innocent worlds to buy peace. And we will stand with humanity against any who threaten the galaxy. The transmission ended. Krath stared at the blank screen. His fleet was being destroyed. His allies had abandoned him. His reputation was in ruins. And somewhere out there, 8 billion humans were fighting for their home with a fury he could not comprehend. For the first time in his long and bloody life, Supreme Warlord Krath understood what it felt like to be prey. The fourth Titan was preparing to fire again. Krath looked at the weapons pointed at his fleet. He looked at the allies rallying behind humanity. He looked at the future of the Vorath Dominion crumbling before his eyes, and he realized that the Galactic Council had been right all along. Protocol Omega existed for a reason. Humanity was the most dangerous species in the galaxy, not because of their weapons, but because of what they inspired in others. The battle was not over yet, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity was going to win. The final phase of the battle lasted 6 more hours. Supreme Warlord Krath had refused to surrender. He had ordered his remaining fleet to press forward in one last desperate assault. He had screamed at his officers to destroy the Titans at any cost. He had promised rewards beyond imagination to any ship that could breach Earth's defenses. It did not matter. The combined forces of humanity and the Galactic Council held their ground. The Titans continued their devastating fire. Allied ships fought with a ferocity that none of them had known they possessed, and one by one, the Vorath fleet was torn apart. In the end, Krath died alone. His flagship, the Devastator, was the last Vorath vessel still fighting. The rest of his fleet had either been destroyed or had fled into hyperspace, broken and scattered. He stood on his ruined bridge, surrounded by fires and falling debris. Watching as human vessels closed in for the kill, Commander Obi's voice came through the communication system. Supreme Warlord Krath, your fleet is destroyed. Your empire is in ruins. This is your final opportunity to surrender. Krath laughed. It was a broken, bitter sound. Surrender? To pray? Never. The Vorath Dominion does not kneel. We do not. The Relentless fired. The Devastator exploded. And the battle for Earth was over. The silence that followed was profound. In the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Vasquez stood before a room full of officers, advisors, and communications personnel. Every screen showed the same thing. The Vorath fleet was gone. Scattered remnants were fleeing toward the edges of the solar system, pursued by Allied vessels. The invasion was over. Humanity had won. But the cost had been staggering. 20-3,000 Allied ships destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of humans dead. Council species had lost brave crews who had chosen to stand with Earth rather than hide behind treaties. Ambassador Reyes entered the command center and stood beside the general. How are you feeling? Vasquez was quiet for a long moment. I do not know. We won. We actually won. But so many people died. People always die in war. The question is whether they died for something that mattered. Vasquez looked at the screens, at the scattered debris that had once been the most feared fleet in the galaxy, at the Allied vessels celebrating their victory, at the messages of congratulation pouring in from Council worlds across the cosmos. It mattered, she said finally. It all mattered. 1 week later, the Galactic Council convened a special session. Ambassador Reyes walked into the vast chamber for the second time. But this time, he was not met with silence and fear. He was met with applause. Hundreds of species rose to their feet. Beings of every shape and form and color filled the chamber with sounds of celebration. Some clapped. Some hummed. Some emitted frequencies that human ears could not hear, but that still conveyed joy. Chancellor Mordax waited at the central podium. When the noise finally subsided, he spoke. Representatives of the Galactic Council, allies, friends, 1 week ago we faced extinction. The Vorath Dominion had come to consume our worlds, harvest our populations, and end our civilizations. We had spent 50 years hiding from them, paying them, sacrificing others to buy ourselves time. He paused, and then humanity arrived. A species we had classified as too dangerous to contact. A species we had watched from a distance, afraid of what they might become. They came to our doorstep and told us something we had forgotten. He looked directly at Ambassador Reyes. They told us that survival means nothing without dignity, that peace bought with the lives of innocents is not peace at all, that the only way to defeat darkness is to stand against it together. Mordax raised his metallic appendage. Today, the Galactic Council votes on a historic proposal. For 300 years, Protocol Omega has classified humanity as a restricted species. Today, we vote to abolish that protocol entirely. Today, we vote to welcome humanity as full members of this council, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, humanity had a seat at the table. Ambassador Reyes stepped forward to accept the designation. He looked out at the assembled species, at the beings who had fought alongside humanity, who had died alongside them, who had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act in spite of it. "Thank you," he said simply. "All of you. We came here hoping to warn you about a threat. We never expected to find a family." He smiled. Humanity has always believed we were alone in the universe. We looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone else was out there. Now we know. And I want you all to understand something. His voice grew serious. We will never forget what happened here. We will never forget the allies who stood with us. And we will never, ever allow anyone to threaten this galaxy again. Not the Vorath remnants. Not some other conquering empire. Not anyone. He spread his arms wide. Because that is what family does. We protect each other. We fight for each other. And if necessary, we die for each other. Elder Luminix spoke from the upper platforms. Ambassador Reyes, what happens now? The Vorath Dominion is broken, but they are not destroyed. They still control worlds in the outer regions. They will rebuild. They will seek revenge. Reyes nodded. Yes, they will. Which is why we are not going to wait for them to do it. The chamber fell silent. The Vorath took something from us. They killed our people. They threatened our world. They made us fight when we wanted peace. We are going to make sure they never have the opportunity to do that to anyone else ever again. General Vasquez appeared on screen, broadcasting from the newly commissioned flagship UES Victory. The first Earth Expeditionary Force is already underway. 12 Titan-class dreadnoughts and 300 support vessels. We are headed for Vorath space, not to conquer, not to enslave, but to liberate. Images appeared on the central display. Slave populations on Vorath worlds. Species that had been harvested for generations. Billions of beings waiting for someone to remember they existed. The Vorath kept slaves, Vasquez continued. Millions of sentient beings from dozens of conquered species. We are going to free them. All of them. And we are going to make sure that no one in this galaxy ever has to live under the threat of conquest again. Chancellor Mordax stared at the display with something approaching wonder. You intend to liberate entire worlds? Ambassador Reyes smiled. We intend to do what humanity has always done, Chancellor. We see people who need help, and we help them. We see injustice, and we fight it. We see darkness, and we bring light. He looked up at the hundreds of species watching him. You were afraid of us. You thought we were monsters. But monsters do not cross galaxies to save strangers. Monsters do not sacrifice their lives for people they have never met. Monsters do not reach out to former enemies and offer friendship. We are not monsters, Chancellor. We are human. And this is just the beginning of what we can do together. The chamber erupted in celebration, and somewhere in the depths of space, aboard the UE's Victory, General Elena Vasquez looked at the stars, ahead, and smiled. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had arrived, and they had no intention of leaving.